I've always said that MMA and pro wrestling are very similar. I've always said that they have some correlations, and there's things in the approach of both and the presentation of both that are very similar, and how they kind of borrow from one another. And then there's some unfortunate similarities too, and I want to talk about the recent suspension of Chris Leben, because drug usage and steroid usage in MMA and pro wrestling is it's a very controversial topic. And Chris Leben is now serving his second suspension of his career. He served a suspension way back in 2008 when he failed a drug test when he fought in England. And it's quite strange in a way that several years later, fast forward to now, 3 years later, Chris Leben is suspended again after having a fight in England. But this time it's not for steroids, it's actually for painkillers and oxycodone. And speaking specifically about Chris Leben before I really delve into the rest of it, Chris Leben to me has been a fighter I've always been interested in watching. He's always been a very relatable fighter. He's always been a fighter that has created common grounds with the fans. And it's very clear, when you talk to UFC fans and MMA fans, Chris Leben has a very big fan base, and people really, really enjoy watching him fight, because he's a guy that comes out there and puts it all on the line and leaves it all in the octagon, and you really see his heart and a lot of who he really is when he fights. And he had a run of bad luck in 2008, and he served suspension for 9 months, and he lost his first fight back, and then he started to kind of rebuild himself. Had that tremendous victory over Akiyama. He went on like a 3-fight win streak, and there was that fight with Aaron Simpson which he won, and then 2 weeks later fights again against Akiyama. And I remember just developing a huge amount of respect for Chris Leben for taking that fight in 2 weeks' notice. And it was a fight that, if you remember, he was not the favourite to win, because a lot of people, the Sherdogs and the MMA weeklies of the world, were telling us all that Akiyama's going to win, Akiyama's going to beat Leben, and it almost seemed like a fight that was set up for Akiyama to go out and win. And this was one of the biggest shows of 2010, and Chris Leben and Akiyama go out and they have this incredible fight. I mean, they really went at it. It was very, very enjoyable and extremely entertaining to watch. And after that fight, the stock of both men rose, but in particular, Chris Leben's stock really started to escalate after that fight. And people were really all about Chris Leben. Now what's going to happen? It almost looked like he was whacking himself back into contention, to the point where, this is not very well known, but when they were talking about doing The Ultimate Fighter, Chris Leben was actually one of the names they wanted to have as a coach against Michael Bisping. And I believe, had he not lost to Brian Stan, that would have happened. So it was very interesting. Chris had all this momentum, and then, he was still a hot commodity in my opinion, even after losing to Brian Stan. And then he comes in and fights Vanderlei Silva, and that 20-second fight and blasts Vanderlei right in the chin and knocks him out. Leben kind of stock is back up there. Then he fights Mark Munoz, and that was a great war, and I favoured Munoz in that fight. And you're thinking, wow, what's next for Chris Leben? What's next for Chris Leben? He's a great fighter. He always has great fights. He's probably more popular now than ever. Even when he's lost, he's still extremely popular. And you think, well, maybe all these things are sorted in his life. He seems a lot more focused. He seems a little bit more centered. And then, unfortunately, you hear about the suspension for a year. And there are a lot of different opinions on this. I think that he does deserve another chance. Some people have a 2 strikes and you're out rule, and he shouldn't have another chance. And I believe he should have another chance. I believe that you have to kind of do it case by case. Some people look at the Nate Marquardt situation and compare it to this, but there are some differences, but it is a wellness policy issue. But, there's some differences between the two. The thing is, what Chris Leben was taking, it was painkillers, and Painkillers to me are a far more worrying issue when it comes to the wellness of an athlete than steroids. And I'm not dismissing steroid usage and saying that steroid usage is wrong. I mean, I'm not dismissing steroids and saying that this isn't an issue, but I feel that the painkiller addiction is far more dangerous and far more sinister and far more darker than the steroid issue. And I think that the painkiller issue and the pain pill issue gets overlooked because steroids is all the range, and it's an interesting topic. But back to the painkillers thing. The painkiller issue worries me because painkillers are highly addictive. And listen, I've taken painkillers. I had a very, very bad back injury when I was 18, and I was given painkillers for them. And I'm not gonna lie, I had one pill, and I swear to God, I could do cartwheels over my house. It was ridiculous. My whole demeanor was way off, and they were very, very addictive. And it started to scare me. And then many years later, I had torn my trapezius muscle, and I had to take painkillers for that too. And again, there's something about them. I only took one every couple of days because there's something about them that really scares me. It always scared me. And they're so addictive, and you don't know that you're addicted to them, but you'll keep on taking them, and your body becomes very reliant, and it's very different to steroids, maybe, in my opinion. I've never taken those, but they seem so harmless, but they can cause so much harm. And in professional wrestling, you hear all these stories all the time of guys, having to work 4 or 5 days a week, and they got like a little knee injury or a ligament injury. Oh well, I'll just take a couple of pills, and then they become so reliant on them, and it becomes this vicious cycle, which costs them their career. And it worries me, that maybe this issue isn't paid as much attention as it should, as bizarre as it sounds, because it's such a grey and dangerous issue. But painkillers are a very, very serious thing. They are there to actually help you, they are there to actually help aid and manage the pain, but there is something about them that's very dangerous, and we've read it in cases and we've seen it in the news. And with this stuff with Chris Leben, it really worries me. And considering the things that we know of Chris Leben, when we've watched The Ultimate Fighter, it worries me even more. And I just hope, and I'm not going to be one of these fans that's going to be like, oh, well, he took drugs, fuck off out the sport. My opinion is that we as fans shouldn't kick this man while he's down. We need to, if you're a fan of him, be a fan of him and support him. Wish him well and hope that he can escape this vicious cycle, because I'll tell you what, you don't want him to, you don't want this cycle to continue and to spiral out of control until one day you open the newspaper or you turn the TV on and you read UFC fighter severely hospitalized or even worse, dead. So who knows? I really hope that he gets his shit together and he gets focused, and all the negative things that are in his life are completely removed, and he's able to rebuild himself. The one thing is though, are the fans going to trust him again? Are the fans going to support him again? I don't know, that's a questionable one. Me as a fan, I can relate to him, and I would still support him, and I'm not going to be like, oh well, no, kick him while he's down and all that, and I've said that before. But I wonder what the other fans out there think. What do you think of this Chris Leben suspension and the painkiller issue in sports and the wellness issue in sports? Do you think that painkillers are an issue? Is the painkiller usage an issue that's overlooked because of the steroid issue? Or do you... No, I can't even say it right. Just let me know what you think. Write some comments. I'm a bit all over the place. My head's bouncing a bit. And I will hopefully get back to you. And I really look forward to reading what some of you have to say about this issue. What were your thoughts on the suspension? And what are your thoughts on the wellness issues in MMA? Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And take care. And I will see you